From the beginning, I'm always interested in the beginning. How was swimming introduced to you?
My mom swam when she was younger, and as I was growing up, it was always like, "Hey, let's try swimming. Let's do this." And I never really did it until one summer I was on the Orchard Hills swim team in Forest Hills, and then from that point on, I just loved it. After that summer, I joined Rays. They're the YMCA team in Grand Rapids, and from there just kind of took off. And I started when I was 10, and I'm still going now.
How quickly did you experience success in the sport? Was it immediate?
No. It was very slow to some degree, compared to a lot of my teammates and everything like that. I got into the sport pretty late. I started when I was 10. A lot of the kids, when I jumped on to Rays, they had started at 8 or 6 or something like that. And it wasn't until I was 12 when I started to really get better and start to stand out a little bit.
You stayed with Rays throughout, and a lot of West Side swimmers gravitated to other clubs, and like I see you swimming with some of the same clubs at the end of your career when you were 17 or 18 years old in Michigan that you started with, and that probably in my mind, without knowing, it seems like there's quite a connection there. Can you tell me about the coaches and the impacts there in the Rays program that kind of helped you along?
Yeah, so when I started, we were still head coached by Nate Manley, who I think is the domestic Paralympic coach at the moment. He left when I was 11, I want to say, but he was great. He was super great with the little kids and the people my age, and we it really helped me like enjoy swimming as a sport. And then when I got older, Nate left for a private school in North Carolina. I think I could be totally wrong on that, but he left to do like a high school type deal. And Joshua Fox popped up as he went from assistant coach to head coach. And at that point, during that transition, Josh was more or less my primary coach. And so we really we already had a chemistry there, and then him being in the head coach role just made it a little bit easier. And then it's not just the coaches that keep you with the club team either. Like my teammates were incredible, even though I sometimes hated them sometimes, because when I was like 11 and stuff, I sucked. But I had teammates who'd be like, "All right, you're going to lead this set," and they would pass me 2 100s into the set. But they were always there to push me, and my coaches were there to push me. But everyone was friendly, and I really enjoyed it.
So tell me about the transition that happens. A lot of the times that I'm seeing that are popping up for you that are easily researchable for me are like when you're 14 and you're arriving as like a state champion swimming times that are among the 15 fastest in that age group still to this day. And so that's where we're getting at 14. You kind of described to me to 12 that you really didn't experience success until that point. Tell me about what happens between 12 and 14 that you arrive at that type of success.
I, to some degree, have no idea. So when I was 12, the beginning of my fall season, I had a huge injury, broke 5 bones, and then came back later in the season and just kind of did well. I missed a lot, but then I got back in. I was doing well. Or that was the next season. My bad. I'm sorry. It's been a while. But no, so that injury and everything, in my mind, I was like, this was hard, and it it really gave me like kind of a pain tolerance, if that makes sense. So training was a lot easier, because I knew what I could push myself to work through. You know, no swim set is ever, or no swim set is comparable to learning how to walk again. And so I was like, you know, I had to do that a year ago, so here we are. And then, yeah, pretty much when I was 12 and a half, 13 is when I started to take off and really get a lot better.
So at some point in all of these discussions, I'll try to pursue setbacks and things that like a swimmer had to overcome. And I think really quickly in our conversation here, we come to a significant injury here that I think I probably need to know a little bit more about as I'm profiling you. So what was the injury? And like when you described having to learn how to walk again, tell me about that.
So when I was 12, I want to say, yeah, it was September. I found a bunch of like dog leashes and then some rope that was laying around in our garage. And I made like a rappelling harness out of all of that stuff, right? And then, you know, I'd managed to get like 15 feet up. We hooked it to our lawn tractor. And so my dad would drive away and I'd go up. And when I was like 15 feet up, my knot slipped and I fell and I broke my right femur, both arms and both wrists, and spent 2 weeks in Mary Free Bed Rehab Hospital. I had to learn how to walk again, so it was an ordeal.
I get it.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just listening to all of this, and like that's not written about. You know, like I'm just saying. Like I went back and I watched the piece that Wood TV did on you, and this didn't come up, and like I didn't see this in any of the profiles. This probably is not obviously something that you talk a lot about.
No, it's not. Just because any interview I've ever done before has been focused on my high school career. Or upcoming college career. So.
Right, but this is such
Here
a big part of. But this is such a big part of who you became, though, right? You know, like as we're having this conversation, a guy that describes this injury as a point where he suddenly changes like what he thinks he can do. That's extremely interesting. So that occurs, and you start to overcome that, and that, as you said, I don't know why that happened or like what happened, but it did. So let me take you to that freshman year, and you come up with a huge meet. Some are really good 50 and 100, but this 50, 2075, right? As a 14-year-old at the high school state meet in 2016. Yes. Yeah, I'll help you along with the specifics, but this particular swim is really significant. Still the state record in Michigan 4 years later in that age group, but I also still one of, like I said earlier, one of the 15 fastest swims ever in that age group, I think. So like, what happened that day, man? Tell me about that swim and how you executed that and how you reacted to it.
So that was prelims of the state meet my freshman year. I'm going to be totally honest. I did not expect that. You know, I've always been one of those people that goes to a meet. It's like, you know, we're going to do our best. We're going to see what happens. We're going to have fun. I always like to do better every time I swim. And I think for the most part in that season up until that point, like I had dropped time in almost every event, like continuously. And so I was really excited. I'm like, I might actually go, you know, a best time, might break 21. I think that was my first time breaking 21, non-relay related. But yeah, no, I just kind of stepped up on the blocks, went, and when that buzzer goes, my mind goes blank, and somehow went that crazy time at 14.
It happens, you know, and then you come back in the final and you don't quite go as fast, right? And you don't win that race. And in the 100, you swim a really great race and like lifetime best as well. How did you feel, you know, like coming close but not getting it, you know, in that race. How did that fuel you, maybe in that meet, but also kind of moving forward at that point in your career?
So I never expected to make states my freshman year. I never expected to make the A final at states my freshman year, and I never expected to be top seed at states my freshman year. So come that final swim on Saturday, I was just happy to be there. You know, I was a freshman, I'm 14, I'm swimming against guys who are 16, 17, 18, and I was just the young guy there. And it was just really exciting. You know, I didn't win that event, but honestly, I didn't care. Like, I had swam lights out the day before. I swam, you know, pretty close to that in that event in the 50 at finals. And I was just happy to be part of everything. Yeah.
So I'm curious about how things started to change for you at that point. You start swimming at national meets almost immediately. I think I see you at Y Nationals in 2016. And so, like, very quickly, not only do you have this amazing experience in the state, but then you go down to Fort Lauderdale and, like, perform on a national stage, like, very quickly, you know? So, like, you're describing, like, I didn't even expect to go to the state meet or score. To, like, within probably a matter of weeks to months, this happens very fast for you. How do you internalize that, and how much more confident were you going to Fort Lauderdale after what had happened to state than you'd ever been before? You know, I'm curious how you're kind of arriving at this mentally.
I was just excited. So after states, I don't think I went back to my club team that year until the summer, I want to say. Honestly, I have no idea. I think it was the summer I went back, and that was my first nationals. And that was at IUPUI. That was long course nats. And our first meet in the summer, our first long course meet, we went down to Miami of Ohio, and on the bus ride there, one of my teammates was like, you know, Henry's gonna get his, like, nationals cut in the first, like, race he swims. And I had never swam long course before, and I had no idea what to expect. I mean, that pool was huge, you know. And then I got it, and then I got the 50. I got the 100 and the 50 were my cuts at that meet. And then come nationals, I was just happy to be there.
You know, the way you describe, I was happy to be there. You know, like, in one of the interviews that I saw, your coach, high school coach, was reflecting on you, and he said, like, he's just a happy kid. Like, that kind of captured, like, is that all fair, that you were just happy to be there and you're overall a happy kid? General positivity from you, is that fair?
Yeah, generally.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So as you're, you know, like, moving forward here, the next thing I'm curious about is also nationally. When you swim a time like that, I imagine you get on some radars. Were you invited to any camps or things like that that helped broaden your horizons as well?
Yes. After long course, I'm trying to remember when all this was. I think, no, it wouldn't have been myself. I don't know. At some point, I was part of the zone select camp in Cincinnati, Ohio. I can't give you the specific date on that. And then I believe my junior year, I went to the national select camp at the O2C in Colorado Springs.
What was the impact of those? Did you get to see guys that, I mean, like, one of the things that I pick up from just about everybody is, like, moments where they're, like, facing guys that they realize are just like them. And that maybe for the first time, that's new to some swimmers. That may not have been your experience, but tell me what the impact of those camps was.
those camps for me, coming from a relatively small YMCA team to being faced with people who are on gold medal USA teams, and whether it be Swim Mac or the one out in California, I got my ass kicked during those practices, especially being a sprinter too. We were training at altitude, long course, which I never trained in season, and then just getting hammered at those camps. But like, it was great to meet people who were in, you know, kind of my shoes in their own sense. It was a blast, and a lot of those guys, or some of those guys, are actually my teammates and closest friends right now. So it worked out.
I don't know if it would have been at one of those camps, but one of the things that I did the other day with Taban at Freak was I asked him, like, can you give me like an example of, like, I just almost set him up as like, what's one of the crazier things that you've ever seen done in a swimming pool, or like a set or a repeat, or maybe something that you did that you were really excited about. And I asked him if he had seen this. I don't know if you saw this interview that got posted on Swim Swam, but Mel Stewart and Christy Young from Holland were talking about him kicking a 456 400 meters with board. And I was telling Taban this, and he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And like, we got all hung up on like the specifics of this like kick. And then like, it was a real story. And that Phelps like was with him and did the first 200 with him, and then dropped him off, and he did the last 200 by himself. But that they went out in like 221 or 223, like some ridiculous,
Oh my gosh,
like 200 meters to start with. And I was like, okay, that's an amazing example, and not everybody's going to have that, because they're saying like nobody ever did this before. But like, did you ever maybe at a camp like that, or yeah, like I said, even something maybe that you did, like what's one of the bigger things that you've ever seen in a swimming pool that left a crazy impression?
I don't have any crazy story like that. And I can tell you quite honestly, I don't remember a lot of the practices from those camps. They were super hard, and my mind has just kind of blocked that out.
Right, just mush.
Yeah. No, I think one of the crazier things that I have done is I've always been told by coaches that my breathing for like the 100 is just awful. You know, I've heard I should breathe more, I've heard I should breathe less, and I kind of went with breathe less. In my senior year, I managed to get my 100 total breaths down to 4. So I would like that swim against Cam Peel at conference. You know, at that point I had been doing 6, and I was like, oh, I can't risk, you know, losing because I took a breath, and I only took, I believe, 4 breaths that entire 100.
Where'd you take them? Do you remember?
I think the middle 225s.
Didn't breathe first lap or last lap?
No, I don't believe so.
Wow. You know, I'm curious about the focus. I love that, you know, some of your biggest swims of your career came at high school state meets. And so there had to have been some high level of focus on those meets because you performed really well at them. But you also went to and swam really well and swam for national championships as part of, you know, with your club team. I think you won 5 YMCA national championships in your career, and then also swam at a number of like winter juniors. And so like, I'm curious at how you prioritized meets, and like how important was high school swimming for you in representing your high school, because you did it really well.
Thank you. So as far as like priority meets go, going into each season, like my priority meets were high school states, and then both YMCA nationals. So the second high school season starts, like states was the focus the entire time. And as far as like, you know, focusing to get ready for that, we would get, as a team, we would get crushed leading up to the 2 weeks before the state meet. And then we'd have one heck of a taper. And that always went well for me. And then after the state meet, Well, up until the state meet, like nationals, YNATs didn't exist. You know, it was just like, let's focus on one thing at a time and then move on from there. So literally the Monday after the state meet, I'd jump in with my club team and we'd start getting ready. We'd break our taper and then retaper for short course nationals. And then after short course nationals, we'd take, I think, a week to 2 weeks off and then start training for summer nats. Yeah, and then winter juniors and stuff like that, I get rest before the meets. I have like a weekish taper going into them. And that was more just to, you know, see where we could be at that point. Yeah, no, but we still worked on it.
What did it mean to you to represent your high school? I mean, is that really big deal for you at the state meet, like swimming for your school? Were you swimming for, I mean, maybe this is a more personal question to you, but like, who were you swimming for in high school? Was it a big deal for you to swim for the team, or was it more about you?
It was, you know, high school, I think was one of my, like, it was my favorite season out of the year. Because I love my club team and I love the people I swam with on my club team, but there is something, as a club swimmer going to high school, there is something about high school swimming that's just fun. You know, it's not the grind of, you know, club practices and 2-a-days and this, that, and the other thing. It's just, here's this group of people, you're going to have fun. Yeah, there are going to be days that suck, but at the end of the day, you're swimming for your team. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
What did that first national championship mean to you? You know, you get it somewhat early in your career, you know, and like that's, I know it's on the YMCA level, and you're also going to other meets that might be moving even a little bit faster, but still, like, it was like, you know, I think 15, you win your first YNAT championship in that range. What did that mean to you?
That meant everything to me. I was so just, I was in shock. You know, it was the 50. It was the 50. We were IUPUI. That was the last time I swam at IUPUI. It was long course, and I remember going into the meet and just being like, you know, I'm just happy to be here. I was in the A final. I want to, yeah, I think that was my first A final long course, and then, you know, just like States, just mind turned off, and I swam, and it was crazy.
I imagine. You know, one thing I wanted to ask you.
Greensboro, my bad. We were at Greensboro long course, I think.
Greensboro?
Yeah.
Well, the thing I like is you remember how it made you feel. You said it meant everything to me. Who cares where it was, right? I know how it made me feel. I know what it meant. That's way more important than where it was. So, you know, you're coming through here, and we can kind of jump to your junior year where, you know, you flirt with, obviously in our state, you know, to that point, nobody had been under 20. And, you know, you flirt with it like nobody ever has and take that state record. And I you know, like it goes unsaid. I know you wanted to do it, and it had to have been a goal and a priority, but still you went faster than any boy had ever, you know, in the state of Michigan been, and I think went 20.04 and then maybe 20.08 or 12, floating right around there. But you know, one of the things that was amazing to me is your new wave. Like, I know what you're saying, that like you, what I mean by that is like you show an ability that young guys now, young sprinters, exhibit much better than the guys that are my age. You swam fast a lot, and you like could go a 20.6 at MISCA and a 20.2 at your conference meet and a 20.0 at your state meet, at like a lot of really, really fast swims. And, you know, like I'm interested in like where that comes from, your ability to swim fast a lot at different points in your year.
I think a lot of that comes from the team. You know, whether it be teammates pushing you to do your best or coaches pushing you to do your best. You know, I was very lucky. Like, you don't get to pick your high school coach. You can pick your club coach, but you don't get to pick your high school coach. And I was very lucky to be coached under Dennis Neat. And I think he really had an understanding of what anyone on the team could do, whether they were me or whether they were learning how to swim the first day of practice. Like, he knew how to push everyone and make it so that they could swim close to their best and do well at almost every meet. You know, and it wasn't just me at NISCA who would swim, you know, close to the best time. I think that year I was 20.11 at NISCA and then went 20.01 at States, you know, 3-4 weeks later. And, you know, I wasn't the only one who did that. You know, there were my teammates, they went best times at NISCA. They got their state cut, you know, turn around to state a month later and there they go, an even faster time. So I think a lot of that comes from the coach, and I was very lucky in that aspect.